Are you fully staffed? And our turnover. Yeah, I'm going to call the meeting to order, if you will. While the attendance is being taken, I'd like to take a minute and welcome Ron Lesser to our meeting. This is his first personal appearance. Well, Ron, maybe to help you connect names with faces, I'll ask each of the commissioners to just identify themselves.
Great. All right. Sure. This is Stan Gosher, representative of Unified Solution.
Hi, Steve.
Jim Ferrand.
And to be honest with you, at the moment, I can't tell you who I represent, the water reclamation group or Plain County, but shame on me.
I think the city. I think the city.
Oh, I'm water reclamation group. That can't be you.
Tony Morstatter. I'm with the Boys and Girls Club, and I represent Bloomington.
Okay. Carl Olson, I'm with the Airport Authority. Nice.
Another Carl Pikeman. I'm with Illinois Wesleyan, and I represent the town of Norton.
And Ray.
Yeah, I'm representing myself. Ray Lai, executive director for the Regional Planning Commission. Yeah, and I could maybe after, just for the interest of time, I can introduce you to the staff members after the meeting.
Sure.
Just so you know who else in the room. It's our guest from Connect Transit. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Jacob Smith, I'm a transportation planner.
And we have members on the screen who are joining us virtually, with some staff members and also some interested citizens. Maybe Jennifer, who's on the commission, if you would like to introduce yourself, and then the others, if you can.
Hi, Ray. It's Jennifer. I'm here.
Okay. And just for the sake of our new member, Ron Lesser, can you briefly introduce yourself, who you representing?
Oh, I'm Jennifer. I live here in Bloomington, so I'm one of the Bloomington representatives. I've been on the commission for just a little over a year now. I work here in Bloomington. I'm a registered nurse, so right now I'm working at Broman. I live here with my family, my husband, and my 3 children, and our dog.
Great. Yeah, and then we have interested citizens and staff members, and I'll introduce you later. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Is there any public comment?
We have not received any, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Next item is the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any commissioner would like to have removed for further discussion? In that case, I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A seconder. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Thank you. Motion passes. So we'll go to the regular agenda then. There are no items removed. So items for information or discussion, we're going to begin with Carl Olson's presentation on the Central Illinois Regional Airport.
Thank you. Great, we're looking at time, so I don't.
Yeah, we're okay. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to visit with you a little bit and share a little bit about Central Illinois Regional Airport. Friendly little airport on the east side of town. There. I want to just kind of give you a quick introduction, kind of just a rundown on some of the basic information about the airport. We are a public municipal government body. We were created by the taxpayers in 1964 in accordance with what's called the Illinois Airport Authorities Act. We, just like all government bodies, we have the ability to assess property taxes, we adopt ordinances, resolutions, we sell tax exempt debt, and we really work out for the benefit of the community. The only reason the airport authority exists is to own and operate your airport for you. So we're a public government body. What's different about us is we have, as opposed to our leadership being elected in a popular election, our leadership is appointed by our stakeholders, which is the city, the town, and the county. We have a 7-member board of commissioners. The town of Normal appoints 2 members. The city of Bloomington appoints 2 members, and McLean County appoints 3. So that's kind of our structure. I am the employee of the airport of the Board of Commissioners, and then working with me, we're very small. We have 21 full-time employees, 10 to 12 part-time seasonal staff. We flex up in the wintertime, we flex down in the summertime. We bring on more people, we call them snowbirds. We bring in more people to do snow removal in the parking lots and the roadways in the winter, and then in the spring we let them go and they come back again in the fall. So we are responsible for everything about the airport except public safety, which I'll touch on in a moment. So we're responsible for the administration, the business operation, the development, the maintenance operation of the airport with our full-time staff 24/7. We do everything from, like I said, finance, operations, admin, maintenance, buildings and grounds, snow removal, construction management. We run everything except the public safety components of the airport, which is law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical. We have an agreement with the Sheriff's, the Plain County Sheriff's Department. They provide our law enforcement at the checkpoint. City of Bloomington provides overall law enforcement in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department. And we have an agreement with the City of Bloomington where they provide our, it's called ARF, it means Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting. The City of Bloomington provides our aircraft rescue firefighting services, and also the FAA mandates that we have EMTs on duty as well. So they provide our fire EMS service. The rest is all done internally. Overall, of course, like government entity, we do fund accounting. We've probably got about 12 to 13 funds at any one time. And overall budget is around the $12 to $14 million, depending upon the size of our capital budget. So when we are sort of in the design phase and we're not building so much, that budget goes down. And then, of course, when we go into construction, that budget flexes up. But overall, we're typically in, I'd say, $10 to $14 million range overall. When we talk about our revenues of all the funds, the general fund is what we use for the operating budget. That's the general fund of the airport. And that's typically in the $5 million range, $4.5, $5 million range. As you can see, even though we're a public municipal body, we only generate 37% of our revenues from taxes. And really the bulk, almost 2/3 of our operating revenue comes from the business operation of the airport. Simply put, everybody that does business at the airport pays us something to be there. Whether it's to land in airplanes, buy fuel, rent a car, buy lunch, or have a cocktail at the bar, lease property, we farm 700 acres. We are very entrepreneurial. So as a result, we only generate a little over a third. This is 2019, obviously 2020, 2021 are crazy. So this was the most stable, and I'll get back to where we're at 22 shortly. But you can see only about a little over a third comes from taxes. 41% terminal operations. What's terminal operations? Terminal rent, car rental business, food and beverage, everything that would take place in the terminal building. Airfield operations, fuel sale, landing fees, leases on facilities that are aeronautical in nature, hangars and structures, air cargo. Interesting to note, air cargo is FedEx Express. We have 2 facilities for FedEx Express. They are now our largest single employer. So airside operations, and that would be FedEx. So that's kind of just a quick snapshot of our general fund and where the revenues come from. A little bit about us overall. We have just under 2,000 acres. So when you think about a school district or a city or the town and you look at the square miles they have and that's their jurisdiction, we're literally 2,000 acres on the east side of Bloomington. We're very compact. We have 90 lane miles of pavement. So for example, when the FAA directs an airport to do snow removal in the wintertime, and we have their requirements, we have to move a half an inch of snow within 30 minutes off all our primary surfaces. We're starting at 90 lane miles of pavement. We have to get that done in 30 minutes or less on just the primary surfaces. So we have a lot of pavement out there. We have 2 runways. Actually, you can kind of see them here. Here's our east-west runway is 6,500 feet, and our north-south runway is 8,000 feet. We have 2 runways. What's interesting about us is we have a very beautiful terminal facility, and it's actually 20 years old, if you can believe that. And people say, gosh, I love going to the airport. I love the terminal. I'm kind of an airport geek, so you got to bear with me a moment. As beautiful as the terminal is, the airfield is even better. We have with 90 lane miles of pavement, and you can't really see it here, but the dimensions, the size, the strength, the geometry, we can support a 767, which is a small wide body aircraft. A community our size should not be able to accommodate small jumbo jets. So the airfield infrastructure is fantastic. Of course, you have the terminal building. We have 2 FedEx facilities. One of them is their Central Illinois regional sorting and distribution facility. We attracted them from Peoria in 2015. And they provide 7 flights a day, every day except Sunday, twice on Saturday, between either Memphis or Indianapolis with 757-200s, which to give you a sense of it is about a 200,000-pound airplane, plus or minus a little bit. They're a big revenue generator for us. As I said, they're our major employer. And outside of Chicago O'Hare, Sierra is the only airport in Illinois that has FedEx Express on site. So we are their Central Illinois facility. Of course, general aviation and corporate aviation, you can see a lot of that down in here. There are 4 flight departments we host at the airport of major employers in the community. We also have OSF Life Flight. We're very excited. They joined us about 2 years ago on a part-time basis, 12 hours a day. And now they've since transitioned into 24/7. So we have now hosting OSF Life Flight. That's the air ambulance helicopter you see going overhead. It's a tremendous asset to have in the community. I mean, these are folks that could, if there's a tragedy, let's say in Pontiac, they can get up to Pontiac and get to the hospital in minutes. It's amazing the ground they can cover. So we're very fortunate to have OSF Life Flight in the community. Synergy Flight Center is a phrase we use called FBO. It stands for Fixed Base Operator. That's the place where you go if you're not a scheduled aircraft operator, like an airline, commercial operator. If you want fuel, hangar, maintenance, if you're going to fly in and meet somebody and go flying, they're sort of a non-scheduled airline aviation facility service provider. Of course, Prairie Aviation Museum, I think one of the jewels in the crown of the community. We have a nice aviation museum. We've got old warbirds. They've got artifacts on aviation. Really a tremendous group of volunteers. And then, of course, our farming. We farm 700 acres. You can kind of see, given the picture of this spring, you can kind of see all the farm ground that we have. We farm both inside the fence, outside the fence. We do that on a cash rent basis. You know, they can tell you it is one of our top revenue generators. It's a big revenue generator for us. Our goal in terms of revenues, obviously, we don't want to dip into the pocket of the taxpayers. So again, we want to be able to generate operating revenue, business revenues from the operation of the airport. And then that breaks into 2 groups, not going too deep in the weeds. There's aeronautical based revenue like landing fees, flowage fees, things that are charged to an airline or charged to someone. But then there's also something called non-aviation revenue. And that's really the grail. That's the gold standard. If we can generate revenue that doesn't touch the taxpayer's pocket and doesn't touch the aircraft operator's pocket, that allows us to be very competitively priced. And even though we're a government entity, the airport business is actually hyper competitive. And we're, I guess you could call it a blessing and a curse, depending upon your perspective. They have 4 other air carrier airports less than an hour from us. Generates a lot of competition for passengers, for air service, for aeronautical business activities, for aeronautical users. So we need to, just like your businesses, we need to keep our prices as competitive as possible. So again, by farming, that's not only non-tax revenue, but it's non-aviation revenue as well.
Carl, you aren't actually one of the only downstate airport that's a Cat 2.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. And that leads into FedEx. Of our 2 runways, there's what we call a visual runway, which is you can just land. There's no instrument approach. You just see it and you land on it. And if you don't see it, you don't land on it. And then you have precision instrument approaches. Typically, a community our size would have 1 or maybe 2. We actually are fortunate to have 3. And of the 3, one of them is what's called a Category 2 or Cat 2. There's only 2 other systems in the state. One is O'Hare because it's O'Hare. And the other one is Rockford because of Prime Air and UPS. And that allows, and we had it today actually with the weather, that allows aircraft to get down to 150 feet above the ground. And if they can, so other airports, you can get down to say 250 feet. And if the pilots can't see the lighting system or see anything, they go misapproach and they're going to take you to another airport and figure out how to get you back home. It's Sierra, you can go down to 150 feet or more, be closer to the ground before you see it, which typically what happens is you're going to get in. There's a higher level of reliability. We had that today when the storms came through. Visibility just plummeted, and yet we still have people coming and going. So, and that's one of the reasons we attracted FedEx. I talked about being excited about the airfield infrastructure. That's part of it. That's why FedEx came. It was a high reliability, even more than passengers. Cargo operators, when FedEx says we're going to leave at 10:05 p.m., it's 10:05 p.m. It's not 10:07 or 10:04. It's 10:05 because otherwise it messes the whole system up at their connecting hubs. So having that Category 2 approach gives us that higher level of reliability. Air service. Everybody's interested in air service. Central Florida Regional Airport is very fortunate. We have 4 airlines. We're the only airport in Central Florida that has 4 airlines. We have 2 network carriers, Delta and American, that provide service to Detroit, Chicago, Dallas, and Atlanta. And from there, all major cities in the world are really one stop away, not just domestically, but in the U.S. And to show you how small the world is getting, it isn't just one-stop service to the main international cities like, say, Tokyo or London or Paris or Rome. It's Dubai. It's Sydney, Australia. It's Sao Paulo, Brazil. The world has gotten smaller, and with this hub and spoke system that American and Delta have, you can truly get there one stop from Bloomington to Norman. And that's amazing. We're also fortunate to have 2 ultra low-cost carriers or low-fare carriers. We have Allegiant and Frontier. They offer day and week service at substantially lower ticket prices to primary vacation destinations, Orlando, Tampa, Destin, Denver, places like that. So we're fortunate to have 4 airlines. We have 2 types of airlines. One is great for leisure, one is really good for business. And we're appreciative that we're able to come through the pandemic. We didn't lose any airline. We didn't lose any flights. In fact, we actually grew in seat capacity by 29%. And that, think of that as our inventory. The more seats the airlines offer, the more passengers we can attract, and the better opportunity for lower fares. It helps us grow our traffic. I think that should take me to, speaking of passengers and traffic, again, looking at 2019, air travel is coming roaring back across the U.S. and also at Central Florida Regional Airport. Through the end of June, we're back to actually 92% of what we were pre-pandemic, which is fantastic. When you consider at the worst part, I think it was April of 20, our traffic was down 97%. I mean, you really couldn't get up. I mean, it's kind of, yeah, you kind of, well, whatever, right? But to have that be back now 92%, is fantastic. So, and I was mentioning to Carl on the way in, it isn't just that the traffic is coming back, the revenues are coming back. We're starting to see the return of business travel, which up to this point is almost all leisure. We used to be 50-50. And coming out of COVID, we were probably 90-10 leisure. Now we're starting to see business. We're seeing business travelers from the country, ADM, Caterpillar. We're starting to see some state farmers. Of course, Rivian flew the whole time. I mean, they're just road warriors. But we're starting to see business travel. And as a result, these business travelers are going to spend more money in the restaurant, in the bar, in the gift shop. They're renting cars, which we get a commission on. So it isn't just that traffic is coming back, but now revenues are increasing as well. We just finished our first quarter. Our budget is trending favorable to budget, our results for the first quarter. And we finished our fiscal year, was our 15th consecutive year of positive results. So things are strong and looking better for us. I admittedly could talk until your ears bleed about the airport, but I wanted to say it's okay with maybe just a couple minutes. If you've got questions or concerns or suggestions, I'd love to hear them, field them if I can.
Carl, what do you think are the next challenges they're going to face?
The biggest challenge on the airline side is the airline system is terribly fragile right now. So you watch the news and they say 7,000 flights canceled across the country and people stranded for days. The reason is the airlines have found that it was very easy to dial down and pull down an airline during COVID, but it's not so easy to build it back up again. So the system is terribly fragile. And what used to be a little hiccup pre-COVID now is a series of cascading cancellations from coast to coast. One of the biggest problems the industry is going to have, and it affects airports, is the airline industry getting back on solid ground, getting fully staffed. You've heard about the pilot shortage, but it's also ground handlers. It's also flight attendants. It's everybody. It's getting them back on solid ground. So far, we've been fortunate in terms of what we've had to experience with cancellations. We've had some, but not like you see in the news. But that's a big problem, and there's no overnight fix. There's more travelers in the system than the system can easily carry. Think of the electric grid system. There's just too much demand for too weak of a system, and it's fragile right now.
Carl, what's happening on the general aviation side, the training?
General aviation, actually, great question. Central Regional Airport has a really vibrant general aviation community. General aviation is private pilots, private aircraft owners, recreational hobby flyers. We have the museum, but we also have a very active EAA group, which is a Experimental Aircraft Association, where they build their own and fly their own airplanes. We have a very vibrant general aviation community, more so than other areas. And for example, we have a Crosswinds Flying Club is based at the airport. They're now up to 7 airplanes and almost 80 members. There was a time where they had maybe 50 members. So we have, GA is actually, is vibrant for us. We're fortunate with that.
Question, if I may. On the farming, the 700 acres, do you farm it, do you lease so that you reap the benefit, monetary benefit? How does that work?
We do cash rent. So every 3 years, we put out a competitive bid, and then we bring a farmer under contract. I think our current farmer is coming out of the Streeter area, and they come down and farm it on cash rent. We monitor the soil. We do soil sampling and soil chemistry tests to check the fertility and track that to make sure the farmer doesn't pull all our nutrients out of the ground before the lease expires, right? But other than monitoring the soil, all we have to do is deposit his rent checks. He does all the hard work.
Is that land available because you have to have so much regulated setback from the community that you have this existing?
No, actually, not every airport farms. We farm because it's McLean County, and farming is what we do. But because it also works out good for us in terms of where the property, some is inside the fence, but they get badged and they come inside the fence and farm. We farm acres outside the fence. It works for us because of our community and our culture. You know, it wouldn't work in Chicago. It wouldn't work in Milwaukee, but it works great in Central Illinois. And other airports in Central Illinois, they just don't have the quality of soil or the configuration of property of acreage like we do. So it kind of puts it to use. And it's less that we have to cut the grass on.
Well, the area that used to be part of the PCSL, is that going back to farmland then?
Yes, the PCSL lease expires at the end of this year as they transition to the old sale barn site. We actually we have no use for that property for development at this point. So we're gonna put that back into our farm inventory. We found out there's some drainage issues, and to take care of the underwater, the subsurface draining and tiling was about $240,000. And when you lay it out based on what we're getting from cash rent, it would have taken 21 years to repay that investment. So we're we'll cut the grass for that. But ultimately, it will come back into farm. It's just, it wasn't time to put money into that right now.
Carl, should we offer a quiz on asking people where the Bloomington Airport was first founded, first located?
I think I know. You can tell me. Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
It's actually on Carrick Road, north of Normal. There's a big rock there. There's a little parking area there, but it's on Carrick Road. So that'd be just east of that Rivian construction that's going on there.
The new warehouse sites.
Yeah. So there's a rock here that says initial home of the Bloomington or Bloomington Normal Airport.
Bloomington Municipal Airport.
Okay. 1920s maybe.
Yeah, grass strip.
Just curious, we have 4 airlines right now. Are they on like every few years they're renewed?
No, they come and go and they're, obviously airplanes are very portable. Airlines will only go, unlike public transportation, airlines only go where they can make money. And even if they're making money, if they can move that airplane over here and make more money, they will. They'll leave in a heartbeat. So it is simply market conditions that dictates not only getting new service, we have to convince an airline, this is, if you put this service in, here's how much money we project you'll make. But it's also, is it enough money that they're willing to stay and not go to another community? Because what happens is for example, when we got the Detroit service back, they don't just have flight crews and airplanes sitting around. They literally took that airplane out of another market today and put it in Bloomington Normal tomorrow. And it's really volatile, which is why we're so competitive. Yeah, they come and go as they please. However they can make the most money. Yes.
What do you see as the biggest challenge for creating demand for air travel?
That was tough. What we focus on, all we can control at the airport is how clean we are, how safe we are, and how secure we are, and to be as convenient as we can. Obviously, Chicago O'Hare just got hundreds of destinations and dozens of airlines, and it's market driven. We could have that if we had Chicago's population. So how can we maximize what we have? And what we have to do is we have to create really safe, modern, low-cost facilities that are inexpensive to operate, so our costs to the airlines are as low as possible. And then what we do is we go out and meet the airlines constantly, and we promote the community. We talk about the major business travel generators, the investment. We talk about McLean County having the highest discretionary income in the state. We talk about having a high education level, high school and college. We talk about our major employers. We talk about new investments, Rivian and Ferraro, and we promote the community to try to get them to want to invest in us.
Follow-up question. Of your current capacity to manage landings and flights and luggage and parking, what's the utilization of that capacity?
On the air side, we've got years of capacity still on the airfield. Okay. In the terminal building is fantastic. One of the things we've noticed is if you've flown out and the upper level departure gate area, that's actually kind of small. It was designed 20 years ago when the airport was still experiencing and hosting 19 passenger turboprop airplanes, 30 passenger turboprop. And what's happened now is Frontier's coming in with a 231 seat airplane. And at the same time, Allegiant comes in at 180, and Delta and American come in with 76 each. And there's about 45 minutes to an hour and a half where it's like this. And of course, once everybody leaves the building or gets on the flight, then there's nobody in the building. Ultimately, in the future, that we'll probably have to add a couple gates in order to create some more circulation space and restrooms. Other than that, we are good to go for decades.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carl. It was really interesting. Pavement surface evaluation. I'm going to call on Jennifer now to start this off for us.
Well, for months now, you've been listening to me give an update on this TASER project and where it came from, what it was doing, and how eventually we would hear the results. Today is that thing. So with no further ado at all, Ryan up for the town.
Well, thank you, Jen, and thank you, Ray, and thank you to the commission, especially for your partnership on this project. We really appreciate your patience. It's been kind of a little bit of a long road as we walk through the grant process, all the way through the information gathering and analysis, and now I'm pleased to present tonight the results of the study for the town of Normal. My name is Ryan Allen. I'm the Director of Public Works and Engineering for the town, and it's my pleasure to work with Ray and Jen on this one, and The study was actually led by ARA, which is an engineering consulting firm out of Champaign. They are specialists in pavement management and do this really nationwide. One of their largest customers is actually in the U.S. Department of Defense. So they do a lot of airfields. Airfields have a ton of pavements. Municipalities, states, federal government, we all have lots of pavements to maintain. They're all challenges in their own way. So what is the pavement management system? Pavement management system is really a method of implementing, categorizing, collecting data on conditions, and then analyzing it. What is the steps you need to take to maintain our pavements in the most cost-effective manner? So it starts with data collection. Our data collection occurred last summer. I think it was maybe last July. You might have seen a van. I'll show a picture of that. That's a van with a bank of lasers on it, really. It's not Austin Powers. It's just a band of lasers, but it measures tracks, things like that. That results in a PCI or Hazer study survey. The performance model will go into that is a computer model that takes into account life expectancies for different pavement types and different ages of pavement. Then we apply a treatment matrix, budget, major M&R, maintenance and rehabilitation, and ultimately we hope to come up with a CIP, a capital improvement program for our pavements in the town. This is the truck. This is ARA's automated LCMS, laser crack measurement system. And with it, they measure crack thickness, quantity. They come up with what we call an IRI, or International Roughness Index. Is a measure of how many inches of, basically how many inches off of level a certain segment of pavement is. They use that for rideability scores. The right-of-way pictures, they take a picture, we have a picture every 20 feet for all of our, it's a 360 picture for all of our pavements. That's really helpful as we start looking at more in depth of our rehabilitation. Our staff doesn't have to go out and how would that look like, or go out and even take pictures. We can just pull this up from our database. It's really handy. And then it's also references with our GPS. It's ties right in with some of the county stuff and allows us to really know where the man is in relation to the road. So what is PCI? The Pavement Condition Index gives us a score of essentially what we see on the surface. It has some limitations and it doesn't tell us what's underneath. So if it's recently been resurfaced, we can have bad subgrade, bad pavement underneath. We really don't know that. So there is some limitation to it, which is some of the limitations that I'll talk about here a little later. But these are the general pictures of, these are not in our community. These are examples that ARA had from around the country. So it starts at 100%. The day it goes in, it's 100, pretty much degrades after that. So the next year it could be 95, and just keep stepping through. You see a 74, which oddly looks like Carrick Road, but it's not. I don't know why. It looks like, I guess it's the warehouse in the background. This is a 66. You can kind of see, you're starting to see some cracking, some breaking up at the edges. 55, and again, you see some of those more pronounced longitudinal cracks that are starting to migrate and expand with freeze thaw. When you get down to 40, you start seeing a lot of alligator cracking, and 11 serious score. It's really failing, and then the last slide, it's failed. So in our community, we had all of these. we have roads that are almost 100. We have roads that are 4, unfortunately. We have the potholes and things. This is an example of the data we have. Not only do we have the picture, we have the digital model of the cracking. You can see the computer is analyzing the cracks. These are even smaller cracks that haven't really opened up, but especially you might notice after it rains, you can see those cracks because the crack takes on more water. The pavement in those areas stays wet longer. You can really see it as the moisture tries to come out. And then the computer digitizes that model to come up with the PCI score. So this is the result. This is our data from the town of Normal. On the left, you see the streets and their condition based on their PCI score. And on the right, you can kind of see the bell curve of where everything is at. I will point out there is a one slight tweak on this between when the presentation was developed and when the final report. I think fair and satisfactory now are both 23, but it's 23%, but pretty close. So our average network PCI is 65, which is a high fair score. So ARA, doing work all across the country, said that's a very good score for a local municipality. That's typically not what they see in a local municipality. So they thought that in general, we're doing pretty good. Obviously, we want to get better. We want to better manage our payments. We want to be more cost effective in how we do things. And so that's why this study was so important to us. And that's why we were implementing this payment management software to help us make decisions and help us plan, program, budget for our payment program. It's a fairly complicated program, Paver, and it's actually one of the lower end software that's available. It's one of the simplest, which is why we selected it. Should allow our staff to be able to manage it without having to do a lot of consulting going forward, at least for the next 5 years, we hope. But there's a lot of moving parts in this thing. There's a lot of buttons you can push. It really comes down to putting good data into it. Over time, we hope to refine this. The more information we have on our condition and our age of our payments, including, we're going to be doing some more structural analysis on some of our payments as we plan our projects. So that will allow us to determine how long we predict a payment based on what's underneath as we learn more about what payment is underneath. And a lot of that data we have, but it might be in our staff. Some of our staff have been with us for 20, 30 years, and that information is in our head. And so over time, we hope to pull that out, get records of it, and be able to put that information into this piece of software to help it be more accurate. Garbage in, garbage out. So the more information, the more good information you can feed, the better it's going to be able to help us over time. So this is a piece of software that's going to be refined, and it's not a static thing. We want to continue to add to it, build information, and use it over time. These are some treatment matrix. Different matrix for treatments are developed for both asphalt and concrete streets, but also collectors and residential. So it's kind of like you would not let a major road get to the point maybe a local residential road might, because it has less traffic. The impact to the traffic public is less. So you might let it get a little bit further down the condition index before you say mill and overlay. So that's just the various treatments based on the PCI score, and it's pretty intuitive. You want to spend money not only on your worst ones, which we'll see in the next slide, but also on your good payments. So you want to keep your good payments good and build up your bad payments and make those better. This is just the same matrix for concrete streets. It's a little different, but the treatments are different for both services. So different set of guidelines and how we treat them. You can see you'd also crack seal a asphalt, but maybe you wouldn't do full depth repair on an asphalt street. This is kind of really what I consider the meat and potatoes of our study. We wanted to know where we were at, what we were budgeting, what should we be budgeting. So this kind of walks us through that piece of information. So ARA ran several different scenarios for us using our existing street conditions, using our data that we have for how long streets last, how long an asphalt street lasts, how long a concrete street lasts. Our data was a little limited on what we had from going on in the past. So like I said, we hope to better understand how long our payments are lasting going forward and further refine these numbers. But preliminarily, for our 5-year budget scenarios, these are what we came up with. So if the town of Norwell would spend $0 the next couple of years, which obviously we're not going to do that, but obviously there's, bad things would happen. If we want to maintain our current average resurfacing, which is around $2.4 million per year, there'll be consequences, which we'll see. Maintain current condition, we need to be spending 6 to 7 million, and that would maintain the system at the current 65 PCI. If we wanted to improve that PCI by 2027 to 71, which is that satisfactory category for all streets, it's 10 million a year, and it's 11.2 if all segments are rated satisfactory by 2027. So here's that same data, but in a graph. You do nothing, you can see the condition of the streets would degrade significantly down to a 50 all the way in 2027. To maintain is that green line. Yellow is the 10 million. You can see the condition going up to that 71, and then eliminate backlogs is 11.2. Here is a budget scenario for our current budget, which is $2.4 million per year for our servicing. You can see it doesn't look that bad, but in the out years, you can see some of the fair streets creep up quite a bit. The percent of the network is either failed or fair, or maybe even degrading to poor. That increases significantly. So from this study, we know we need to increase our resurfacing budget, and that's one of the things that the town council and city manager and I are going to be discussing further in the coming months and weeks as we go into our budget season. We hope to identify additional funding for resurfacing based on these numbers. And so this is very helpful in seeing, how those decisions that we made today and for our next 5-year cycle will benefit the community and how it really is going to affect our payment conditions. This is a graph showing the importance of pavement preservation. So pavement preservation is putting a treatment on a street before it deteriorates versus waiting until it falls apart and rebuilding it. You can see the top is the worst first. There are many communities that still do this, where they walk away from it, they build their street and walk away from it for the next 25, 30 years and then rebuild it. That's not what we want to do. It's kind of like I'd like to think it was like a car. You would get a new car and then drive it until the engine blows up. You change the oil, you wash it, maintain that car, and it's going to last a lot longer. Well, the same thing with our paints. We want to be crack sealing. We want to be doing some pavement patching. We want to be doing some surface treatments like fog seals, might be a chip seal. That's something we've not done a lot of in our community at all. There's rejuvenators to use to help extend the life, especially asphalt pavements. So we want to be doing all those things to help make our pavements last longer. So in conclusion, there's a couple different things that we took away. One is we got into the information on this study. We realized that it's not the end all of, you can't put your information in the computer and it's not going to spit out exactly what roads to do, when to do them, and how to do them. It just isn't that powerful. It's very powerful, but it doesn't have that much information that it takes away engineering judgment. So there's still a lot of engineering judgment. When you look at some of the scenarios they came up with, you recognize that there's little pockets of work all over the community, which isn't realistic for mobilization for a contractor. So that's one thing we'll have to take into consideration as we work to program our 5-year budget. Even next year's program for resurfacing is taking a look at what the recommendations are from the computer versus what we can actually do with a contractor, what the capacity is for our community. There's a lot of factors that go in. They're really illustrated looking at our results, the importance of preventive maintenance. So we hope to do even more of that. Town recently bought a crack sealing machine to seal cracks in our concrete and asphalt pavements. Our crews are doing a great job. We got it in last week, and I think it's been run almost every day that has agreed since then. So we'll continue to do that. I think that's a great thing. We're going to develop not only our pavement rating or pavement preservation programs, but also add a bridge preservation. Bridges are one thing that often get ignored because they're just a very small part of our system, but they're a very expensive part of our system. That bridge deck costs way more per square yard than the street in front of your house. It's just amazing how expensive they are. So we want to do more. We want to concentrate a lot on bridges as well. The PCI data that we gathered is independent and objective. It's going to tie in well with what the city and the county are doing. That was one of the goals of this project, is to be able to compare, and see how we're doing compared to both the city and the county. So we'll be doing some conversations, looking at opportunities to partner and share ideas. We do a lot of that anyway, but I think this is going to help us have those conversations even further. So we want to utilize our conditions to develop our programs, funding targets and maintenance, utilizing engineering judgment as we select streets for resurfacing. Learning over time is important as we learn what's underneath of maintenance. Developing new techniques. We recently piloted a new technique that hasn't been done in Central Illinois that I'm aware of, called the crack and seat. Essentially, it's more of a rubblization of pavement to help mitigate some of the faulting that was done out by Maxwell Park and Parkside Elementary. There's a concrete street segment that didn't qualify for our usual mill off the surface and risk pave it because it had a lot of faulting and even movement in the subgrade. So the project is actually done, except for striping. It went well. We're anxious to watch it over. Unfortunately, in this business, you don't really know how successful you are for maybe 10 years. So we'll be watching that real close, see how that performs over the coming years. We're going to add some structural analysis, some boring, coring for some of our overlays to make sure that what we're putting on the surface matches what's underneath. That's going to last. And then just up our routine maintenance, not on our own crews, but also some contracting. With that, I would appreciate your time, allowing me to be here today. And again, thank you for your partnership, your patience. As Jim said, I know there's probably been an update every month for the last 2 years. So thank you for being willing to partner with us on the project, and just would open up for questions now.
Good. I was just curious, is the map reflecting PCI scores available somewhere on the normal website or GIS or anything like that?
Yes, it should be on the normal website, probably sometime tonight.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, can the normal citizen, so to speak, be able to see what the street is rated in front of their houses?
Yep. The map should be on the town website. Yep.
Okay. And then also too, I would assume that there's the opportunity for partnerships, since both or all three municipalities are using this system to be able to get contractors in, so that contractors can get a bulk of the work and perhaps get a lower price.
Yeah, there are some opportunities for that. Those conversations have been happening, but because of budgets and timing and staffing, I don't know that there's been a lot of partnerships, but there's an opportunity for that for sure. Especially some of the specialty contractors that do some of the pavement preservation processes. I think there's definitely opportunities there to save some money.
Yeah. Well, I know there are streets, as someone that goes back and forth pretty regularly between Bloomington and Normal, there are streets at times that seem like they need to get done, and parts are in Normal, parts are in Bloomington. So it just seems to me to be a natural partnership that when that work needs to get done, that both municipalities can decide to prioritize to stretch.
Yep, absolutely. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Do other parts of the town of Normal use this data to coordinate repairs? For example, sewer and water. They have their plan. Of course, they're underneath the street, right? So are they using, this, it makes good sense for us to do this road is in terrible condition. So is the sewer and water. Is it, do they combine their budgets in a cooperative way to get the best for the citizen?
Yes, we do coordinate that. This data is going to help that tremendously. Hopefully the goal is to allow us to select streets several years in advance to allow, for instance, a water main project particularly takes a long time to get off the ground with design, construction, and permitting through the IUPA. So they usually have maybe a 2-year lead time. So with this data, we hope to be able to eventually project out our capital resurfacing program for several years. That would allow all the other utilities, not only sewer and water, but also our partners, fire companies.
Other utilities.
Anybody that's underneath the street. So it's going to allow us right now, for instance, if the streets are selected for resurfacing in, say, January, that gives us 4 months to televise the sewers, check our water maintenance records, make sure the water maintenance is good. It's really it's not ideal. We're always hustling, trying to find things. We just ran into a sewer problem on a resurfacing fell street right now, by Glen School. And we milled, we had televised the sewer, everything looked good. You never find anything. We milled the surface off and we had a sinkhole. So today we're digging the sewer in the binder so we can resurface on Monday. So we hope that, with this data, we'll be better able to, or better prepared to coordinate and do those repairs in a timely manner.
And are you doing geotechnical surveys as well?
It depends if we're unsure of, really what's underneath. We did it before we did the crack and seed out by the Parkside School. We did cores on that because we wanted to see what the subgrade was like to make sure. We didn't want to do it on a subgrade if that was the problem that needed to be repaired. So we did cores on that. Some streets we know is there. Streets were built 30 years ago. We have plans. We know it's 3 inches of asphalt needed, just kind of asphalt, so we don't spend the money.
Okay.
So the database, does it have the ability to age the conditions so that it prolongs the point at which we need to revamp?
It does predict conditions based on the data we feed it. So I mentioned, we had some limited amount of data that we had in the past. So maybe we had 20 years of data, but not 30 years of data. So it does we create a curve based on the data. I don't have that up, but we create a condition deterioration curve based on the age of that pavement. The computer predicts where that pavement is going to be in 5 years, essentially, or 10 years, whatever number you feed into it. We hope to get that. Our curves are pretty generic right now because of our lack of data from the past. And so we hope as we move forward, we're going to put in more data, more surveys. They're recommending another survey every 3 to 5 years. So that'll be something we'll budget for a program as we get more data. That's going to be really powerful for predicting what's going on and what's going to happen in the future.
A follow-up, you mentioned, you had a few slides that mentioned at this PCI, this may be a recommended solution. Is that climate-based? How do we arrive at those recommendations?
That is more experiential from ARA. They do this all over the country. So in their experience, for instance, if once a street gets to a certain PSI or a certain PCI where it's all cracked up, you wouldn't want to do a rejuvenator because that's not going to help. It's just you're just throwing money away. So I think it's more experiential, both from ARA, town staff was able to speak into it with our experience and what we see for different treatments. So it's basically trying to apply the right treatment at the right time.
Well, maybe you said something that piqued my attention. Those recommendations, is that coming directly from the consultant, or was that also modified and now it's adopted as the town's recommendations?
It's now adopted as the town's recommendations tailored to the town. Basically, you're right in a way it's climate related because our deterioration curve is going to be different than say a pavement in northern Wisconsin or Arizona. So they have clients all over the world really. And so this data is for us. They took their information and combined it with our information and came up with these curves.
Any other questions? Yeah, one more. I don't even know how to ask this question, but with regard to the state roads, veterans and Route 9 and Route 51, that's all state managed. We maintain it, right? But they responsible for the resurfacing?
Yeah, the state is responsible for major M&R maintenance or repair on all the state routes.
And how does that process work? How's it get done?
So the state of Illinois, we are based in Paris, Illinois, which is District 5. And so the programming starts down there with their capital budgets. We talk to them frequently, reminding them that Route 9 needs to be resurfaced. I think a lot of you probably saw the open house they had for that a couple of weeks ago. But it really is them programming and planning and budgeting for their own roads. There are sections of, say, Main Street and Route 9 that the town and city have contracts with the state to maintain those, plow the snow, fill the cracks, stripe in some instances, maybe even fill potholes depending on the stretch of Main or 9 or even 150 for the city. But major M&R where, the road gets to a certain point, then it's the state's responsibility. And those boundaries are weird. Like in Normal, we don't plow past Willow to the north, for instance. But then the state has all responsibility north of Willow. But we have responsibility from Willow to Division for snow plowing, minor patching, things like that. So there's a lot of nuances in those contracts developed over many, many years, I think.
Goes back to Carl's question about driving down a road and seeing that some of it's done and some of it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the boundary between Bloomington and Normal is fascinating. If you pull up GIS and see how some roads it goes along the north side, some roads it splits the difference. It's interesting. Very few people, like Kevin Tovey is one of the best with the city of knowing, oh yeah, that's the towns. That's ours. We usually don't tell us that. Excuse me.
One last question. This study that you haven't read it today, and it seems to focus on cracks more so than on how uneven the surface is. Is there any, and in my opinion, there's something to be said about a road being uneven. Okay, it's not just, yes, I get that a crack occurs and that can start the unevenness, but especially on some of the concrete roads, they're, between the stress lines that they actually intentionally put in the road, it's like those surfaces are not level, they're not even. And it creates this like humpback approach to driving. What in your model is addressing that, and what in your budget is addressing that? Or is it even a concern?
It's a really good observation, and it is definitely a concern. We call it, concrete streets is not a faulting, where you're looking in a rearview mirror and you see you see the top of the slab behind you.
Yeah.
See that on a lot of our concrete streets. It's basically the result of movement in the subgrade. Could be a design issue where the road maybe needed dowels to bridge those forces from the traffic, and we have too much truck traffic on a particular pavement. I know a Normal one example that I think of is Wiley Drive. Wiley Drive comes out of Bloomington, goes into Normal. I think they were built with the same contract at the same time, most likely, because same problem. It's faulty. The study addresses that. It was one of the limitations, I think, that we saw because the slab is in good shape. So when you drive it,
there's no crack.
Especially when you're pulling the trailer, you're bouncing. It drives you crazy. There's not a good solution for that, unfortunately. One solution that we've looked at is a diamond grinding, where you basically take the diamond grinder and mill each slab so that from 0 to 1 inch, and do it that way. But it's really expensive. It's never really been proved cost effective or that would even last. We're actually hoping, we saw that at Parkside Drive. We hope our crack and seat methodology where we shorten the slab, because the shorter the slab, the less force on, less it rocks. So we're hoping that method could give us a tool to address some of the problem. But when we did the survey, we definitely saw, and your observation is correct, it doesn't say a whole lot about it because, I don't think there's not a whole lot of solutions that are good that we found. But we had to adjust some of the ratings. We had to we had to go back and look at, what is that difference to adjust some of the ratings, because some of the ratings we were seeing for those segments just didn't add up.
Right.
This road looks good if you look at it from the top, but when you drive it, it's terrible. So that's an excellent observation that we definitely thought about and kind of tried to incorporate into the pavement ratings.
Okay.
It's a long answer, I'm sorry.
No, it's a tough one.
It's a hard problem. It's a hard problem, but okay. There's not a good solution yet. So we're hoping that traffic see.
It starts with at the beginning.
It really does. Yeah. The load transfer, and if that's designed properly, installed properly, can help a lot.
Okay, thanks.
Well, thanks very much, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Our next item is regional housing initiative update. Tessa.
Thank you, everybody. So Regional Housing Initiative update, starting with our Housing Assistance Coalition. Members of the coalition have requested the creation of a new position called the Housing Stability Navigator. So this new role would act as a central location to assist residents in accessing housing services in the area. And the coalition is requesting the city of Bloomington and the town of Normal to utilize American Rescue Plan funding to create this position. So it is not definite yet, but it is currently being requested. Going on to some white paper updates for 2022. So the update that we talked about at our last meeting about income qualified housing in McLean County, which focuses on our area median income. This white paper was presented to the Regional Housing Staff Committee during July's meeting for feedback and comments. And then we're going to revisit it at this month's meeting. And once the paper is approved by the staff committee, it will be posted on MCRPC's website. MCRPC staff are also working on gathering data to update another white paper, which tracks the number of income restricted units in the county. And this paper as well, once it is completed, it will be presented to our Regional Housing Staff Committee in the next month or two. And then finally moving on to House Bill 2621. We talked about this at our last meeting. Again, this is an incentive program that was passed by the state. It incentivizes the construction or rehabilitation of affordable rental housing via a reduction in the building's post-construction assessed value. So the County Board's Executive Committee met on Monday, July 11th to consider whether the county should stay in or opt out of this special assessment program. The chair of the Finance Committee ended up pulling the item from the agenda with no objections from the Executive Committee members. So as a result, the county is currently not opting out of the program. And that is my update. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tessa. Ray is going to update us on the Vision Zero Goal Safe project.
Thank you. Not directly related to Vision Zero per se, but it's related to traffic safety programs, and where staff is in the process of working on an application, a federal grant application for traffic safety. Its acronym is SS4A. It stands for Safe Streets and Roads for All. And it's a national program. It's different than what you're familiar with to the Go Safe plan, in that the federal government is looking for more criteria such as equity, matrix, information, data, more detailed work program, and also it's going to be very competitive. It's because it's a national grant, federal grant program. So we are kind of working on that. So it's not due until middle of September, but there's a lot of work to be done. So we'll keep you updated. So that has been, keeping us busy. And then Yeah, so that's the federal grant project that we are working on. The other two state grants that we applied for, and I mentioned it last time, we still haven't got any official word from them yet, but should be soon. We hope to have more updates to provide you. Those are the two IDOT safety grants that we applied for, and so we hopefully will hear some good news at this next month. So that's all for other than.
Do you want to go right on with item E?
Yes. In terms of the Metropolitan Long-Range Transportation Plan, it's still ongoing. As you know, the public survey was closed at the end of June. Although we still can't keep it open in case there's some public members who are interested in providing input. But staff has started working on collating, summarizing the information, the feedback that we have collected, and we plan to present that summary to the project steering committee at the next meeting. So we are working hard in mapping what the roads and streets of concern, what some of the issues, or who are those folks who responded to the comments. And also separately, staff is working on different chapters of the plan document, the draft plan document. So we have already sent out to the project steering committee a few chapters. We plan on having 4 more chapters to send out in next week or so. And so hopefully that gradually will wrap up at least the draft report, which is still work in progress, but still a lot of information. We still have the consultant that you approved last month who are working on the population projections. And so we should have some numbers in few weeks from the consultant. So all those will be collated and incorporated into the draft document. So that's all the update on the Metropolitan. Okay.
Thank you, Ray. Is there any other business that arises or has arisen? All right. Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tony, a second.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Against? Hearing none, you're adjourned.
Thank you.